begin by pinning the placket to the blouse. So I'll begin by unpinning my pattern pieces from myself, and then I will open up my sleeves so that they are left and right. Here's where I'm about to discover that I didn't press my fabric like I should have, and I have to go back and redo everything, but I can go ahead and mark my drill marks because they are inside of the distortion. So now I have my patterns trimmed up and accurate, and I've opened them up so I've got the left and right faces up, and now I'm taking my placket piece and I'm also marking the drill marks on it. It is notched on the bottom so I can line up my notches and my drill marks, and now I'm laying on my plackets. Now see this high part? That high part wants to be on the inside of the garment towards the elbow, so they go oriented like this, and the fabrics are both face up, and I'm putting the placket underneath the sleeve and pinning it in place. Doing the same thing on the other side. Both fabrics are face up, and I'm pinning the placket to the wrong side of the sleeve to begin with. And now I'm drawing in the box. I'm going from my notch at the bottom to my drill mark at the top so that I have a straight line to follow as I'm stitching. And here I'm going to start stitching those boxes, starting up one side with a back tack, going tight into the corner, making sure that I'm right at my drill mark with my needle, pivoting and turning, coming across the short side, and then pivoting again and going down the long side. So here's the other box. Again, start with a back tack, stitch down to your drill mark, put your needle in to pivot, go over to your next drill mark, needle in to pivot, and then finish the long leg. Now we're ready to press these, so I'll unpin them, get out my ironing board, and then I'll start cutting open the box. So again, this is face up, so I'm cutting almost to the edge and then 45ing into the corners. And now I can bring the placket to the right side of the garment. So first I'm folding in the small side, giving it a good press so that I have a crisp edge to turn, and then folding the entire placket in so that my box is nice and clean. And now I'm double folding the inside of the placket, getting it to just cover the previous stitch line, and now I'm double folding over the outside part of the placket and folding under the top so that everything is nice and pretty and we don't have any exposed edges. And now I'm going to stitch those down, but next I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Here I have the piece face down, but I'm cutting into the corners, and now I'll flip it to the right side and I'll pull my placket up. So I'll press that seam over, pressing the seam allowance into the placket, and now I'll double fold over the short side and press it in place with my stitches lined up for a stitch in the ditch, and then I'll double fold the outside of the placket or front of the placket and fold up the top corners so that everything is pretty. Now I'll start with the short side at the bottom, begin with a back tack, and go all the way up into the closure of the placket and end with a back tack. Trim off the threads, and now we need to stitch the top box of the placket. And in order to hide the corners, I want to start on this vertical line a few stitches above where I need to pivot and move across to the other side of the placket. So I'm going to come down maybe 4 or 5 stitches, pivot, position my needle so I can pivot and come across the placket, and now I can come back up the box for my third corner, manually positioning that needle, come across to the bottom corner, manually position my needle, and now I can finish the entire length of the placket, making sure that once I get out of the box, I'm just on the right side of the placket. I'll do the same thing with the other side. I know my fingers are really close to my needle, but I am manually controlling the needle when my fingers are this close, so please be careful when you're sewing these plackets. Again, I'm going to start a little bit up from my pivot point, come down to my first corner, come across to my second corner, locking my placket together, manually setting my needle so that I can pivot and roll. Now I've got to tuck some of that seam allowance. It was a little ugly, so I just want to make sure that it's inside the placket. I'm holding that with my awl, stitching up to the third corner, across to the fourth corner, and then manually setting my needle so that I can come all the way down the placket. And then I'll end with a back tack. And lastly, we're going to edge stitch or 1/4 inch seam allowance stitch our collar itself. So I want to keep that edge right at the 1/4 inch seam allowance mark so that I have a beautiful, even top stitch for my collar. And then I'll begin and end those with a back tack. And here is where I had to press everything out, every single piece, and manually trim them all down. So again, please pre-press your fabric. Don't be like me and get in a hurry, because it won't work out. And you'll have to do this, and that's a major bummer. But I have to press all of these pieces back open and then recut them. Typically one side was okay, so I don't have to do that to all of them, but I just have to lay them all out and press them and make sure that everything is accurate so that it doesn't throw off my stitching. Because as long as our pattern is accurate and our seams are accurate, our finished garment will be accurate. So once I have everything cleaned up, I'm ready to continue on sewing, installing the sleeve. Next we'll construct the collar and the back and the rest of the garment. Here you can see we're putting the collar together. I've got it sandwiched in between the collar stand, and now I'm going to stitch up, across, and down. And now I've got pieces number 1 and 2, so I'm going to clean up piece number 2, and then I'll be able to begin the mitered corner for piece number 1 to set in to piece number 2 on the center front. So I'll match up those, and we're going to stitch from the top to right at our break point, and then we're going to back tack.